Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Hope you're doing well today. Just doing a follow-up video presentation about, I think it was a previous video that I made. So today we're at the British Journal of Cancer, being hosted on nature.com, a scientific repository. We're in the Journal of Epidemiology, and today this article was published in 2018. The title is Proximity to Overhead Power Lines in Childhood Leukemia, an International Pooled Analysis. We can see that there are scientists from the University of California, Los Angeles, University of West England in Bristol, Oxford University, so it's a Descartes University in France. And the reason we're making this video today is because scientists and doctors alike, since they're using logical modalities from a perspective of limited awareness, they often will explain or question or pontificate certain issues that they do not contain the reasoning for in order to actually make a relevant assertion. And so by attaining ultimate awareness and then using perfect perception, and then developing the ancient siddhis, we can see more clearly when we incorporate and combine different types of science from around the world, including ancient science of the Vedas and Chinese dynasties, as well as Tibetan and Egyptian dynasties. And so we're going to talk about, let's see here. Okay. So these researchers, they're confused about the declining stats in high voltage power lines, risk of increased leukemia in children and newborns, with many of these studies taking place in the 80s. So I'll just read very quickly here. The Draper et al. Study extended to cover more recent time periods with diagnosis during the 1960s to 2008 and the lower line voltages. The updated study confirmed the raised leukemia risks reported for the earlier decades, but found that the risk declined in the latest decades. A small Danish study calculated fields also found higher risk in earlier decades compared with more recent cases. So the reason why the risk continues to decline, although still a serious potential health hazard, has to do with the hereditary nature of epigenetics, like I've talked about at length in other presentations and white papers available at sattvananda.org. And what we're seeing here, especially with the, gotta do this so I don't get flagged and deleted. They were rolling out, world governments, industrialists, Westerners were rolling out new systems, energy as well as different types of radar, and that coincided with this 1918 SP. You got to put it together. And just like we see today, we have the Mexican beer illness, again, I have to do this so the AI doesn't delete me. And we see once again a new system being rolled out called, and again, you see an increase in the number of hospitalizations. They're saying it has to do with the Mexican beer illness, but just like in 1918, it happens to coincide with new EMF disturbances in the form of alternating current, just like in my previous scientific presentation. So of course they've already attacked all of this and determined that it's a fanciful conspiracy theory, but we know that even modern scientists have found a link between this, and they're talking about it in peer-reviewed, well-cited articles from universities around the world. So we have, the status sympathizers, the legacy media telling us that it's not possible, and yet we have legitimate doctors and scientists from very different fields and walks of life saying that it is relevant. And just like with the fun juice, in conjunction with the new technology, high-speed internet, quote-unquote, what they call high-speed internet, just like the alternating current in 1918 and different types of radio as well as early radar, we see exactly the same thing, people getting sick. And I talk a lot about in my papers how we've been here for a very long time, and these ancient royal families, you could call them, these bloodlines that have traveled between Mesopotamia and Egypt, China, Tibet, Mongolia, Russia, India, Iraq, and now the current incarnation rests in the Arab nations, as well as the current incarnations in England and the United States because of the bloodlines and the inheritance of certain epigenetic traits. We see the same agenda taking place here, and that's why it's very important to study alternating current as well as electromagnetic interference and how it pertains to our biology, because what's actually taking place here is that these people, if you can call them people, these ancient royal families, have subtle ulterior motives that they have essentially been planning for and curating certain types of situations taking place all over the world that happen to look coincidental, right, to the unread or to the uninitiated. But these programs, for some reason, they're trying to acculturate or acclimatize human biology to be able to coexist with these high-intensity EMF fields. And the reason for this, just like the reason why they've altered the nature of our food choices from primarily animal-based in the last 10,000 years to primarily plant-based, has everything to do with how our brains work and how B12 deficiency can actually lead to forms of psychosis. And this has been reported in other papers available in the National Library of Medicine. And B12 deficiency can also express itself with symptoms like mental delusions or even auditory hallucinations, physical hallucinations. So, of course, they don't want anybody to know about this, but these agendas occur hand in hand because of these cultures of these royal families, their knowledge base and their through lines of knowledge seems to happen distinctly separate from the destruction of the surface dwelling people's knowledge bases throughout several cataclysms that have been reported in biblical history or even archaeological history, like the Younger Dryas. And so we see two distinct forms of knowledge, one preserved, intact, and comprehensive, the other curated for the purposes of thought control in the bioenergy form of the ignorant, like I've talked about in my previous white papers available at savananda.org. So we're seeing a acclimatization, and we're seeing humans coexisting with these high intensity EMF fields are being normalized. And then when we start talking about different types of things that have happened in the past, 1918, SP, Corona, Mexican beer illness, and then including the fun juice, we see a distinct agenda forming. And, the fun juice, I've already proven in my white papers with the help of several international researchers, the creation of these highly structured circuitry in the presence of EM fields, creating this separate U that I've talked about in several other videos, and how this separate U functions with high-intensity information, so-called high-speed information transfers like 5. And the rationale, reasoning, and the entire purpose of the acclimatization of humans in high-intensity EMF fields has to do with effectively transmitting a thought carrier wave into the minds of humans, but specifically of the humans who don't become unalive from the fun juice. Okay, so there's a lot of subtleties here. Put your thinking caps on. Let me know if you have any questions. So many people have been unalived by this, right? And different types of radar systems that interfere with the intracellular communications of our bodies. More people have been unalived with this as they've brought this online, and they want those people to be unalived because they're trying to influence the hereditary nature of epigenetics and fully acclimatize human people with these high-intensity EMF fields, and so that they can use the fun juice circuitry to essentially mind control using latent informational carrier waves, what they call high-speed data transfer. And we've already seen this, even before all of this, these agendas, even before we've been talking about this, you see that, people, they're very distrusting of the government because of the corporations, the high cost of healthcare, and, capitalism in general. And yet they're very supportive of Big Pharma. They think they're being helped by Big Pharma. All of these anti-capitalists and supposedly anti-fascists are now essentially functioning in line with the Biden regime, the Democratic agenda, the rollout of, compulsory fun juice, all of these things. So you have these conflicting notions, and what we're seeing essentially is the mind control apparatus, even before the fun juice, even before the 5G, right? Even before all this stuff, you see these contradictions taking place in the humans. So it's already been happening, even way back in history. So it's important to know about all of this, to come to terms with all of this, and then to protect ourselves from EMF pollution by utilizing EMF absorption, available at lifeproductsdirect.com or Etsy at Life Products Direct. Of course, only if you would like to maintain a level of original thought. And then the other side of the coin of all of this is utilizing the siddhis with perfect perception, what we always go over in the yoga classes that I teach, being able to pierce the veil, quote unquote, in so many words, to ascertain ultimate awareness. And with that ultimate awareness, you begin to see how some people, they say they're anti-capitalist, they say they're against big pharma, but then they've just contributed to the largest increase in big pharma profits, capitalist profits in the history of man, one of the greatest wealth transfers in recent history. So we have these contradictions, and when we increase the level of our self-awareness towards ultimate awareness, we begin to see these contradictions more accurately. And when we begin to see them, then we begin to be liberated from them, emancipated from them, the Western white medical mindset. And when we do that, we can begin to educate the others and function more autonomously with greater personal agency for ourselves and our family. So yeah, kind of interesting topics, very controversial, of course, but nobody's really speaking upon this, and it's very important to know, because due to the finite nature of the human lifespan, we don't necessarily perceive the entire agenda, right? These very smart scientists from universities all over the world, they're scratching their heads thinking to themselves, wow, the risk associated with leukemia has been declining, but they make no mention or attempt at why that is, right? Or even why you have alternating current creating leukemia in the first place, right? These are the limitations of the Western logic-based medical mindset. And these limitations show us why we need a more comprehensive level of thought or consciousness or awareness that can only be attained through the ancient traditions. Zen Buddhism, these are just names, of course. Monism. There are so many traditions. Yoga, the Vedic knowledge, Native American shamanic journeys. There's lots of different modalities who have achieved this higher level of awareness that we so seriously need right now if we want to be truly free, and in a way that does not perform these kinds of logical contradictions that we went over earlier. So I hope this is all making sense to everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to schedule an appointment at savananda.org. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Thank you very much.